Hello, shining stars. Are you still keeping up with the story? I hope so, because I think it's about to get very exciting. Well, if you remember, the last time we were together, something terrible happened to Despero. Do you remember what happened to him? I'll show you a picture. Can you see it? Do you remember? Miggery Sow chopped off his tail. Oh, poor Despero. Well, let's see what happens next when we read chapter 35, The Knight in Shining Armor. Despero was pondering the reverse of that question. What question? Let me go back and see. What was the question? What good will that do us when the rest of him is disappeared into the pantry? That's what Cook said about what good will it do having the tail if we don't have the mouse. So Despero's thinking just the opposite. What good is a mouse without a tail? But what would he do without his tail? He was sitting on a bag of flour high atop a shelf in the pantry, crying for what he had lost. The pain in his hindquarters was intense, and he wept because of it. But he also cried because he was happy. He was out of the dungeon. He had been recalled to life. His rescue had happened just in time for him to save the Princess Pea from the terrible fate that the rat had planned for her. So Despero wept with joy and with pain and with gratitude. He wept with exhaustion and despair and hope. He wept with all the emotions a young small mouse who has been sent to his death and then been delivered from it in time to save his beloved can possibly feel. Reader, the mouse wept. And then he lay down on the sack of flour and slept. Outside the castle, the sun set, and the stars came out one by one, and then they disappeared and gave way to the rising sun. And still Despero slept, and while he slept, he dreamt. He dreamt of the stained glass windows and the dark of the dungeon. In Despero's dream, the light came to life, brilliant and glorious, in the shape of a knight swinging a sword. The knight fought the dark, and the dark took many shapes. First, the dark was his mother, uttering phrases in French. And then the dark became his father, beating the drum. The dark was Furlough. Do you remember who Furlough was? That's right, it's his brother. Wearing a black hood and shaking his head no. And the dark became the huge rat, smiling a smile that was evil and sharp. The dark, Despero cried, turning his head to the left. The light, he murmured, turning his head to the right. He called out to the knight. He shouted, Who are you? Will you save me? But the knight did not answer him. Tell me who you are, Despero shouted. The knight stopped swinging his sword. He looked at Despero. You know me, he said. No, said Despero, I don't. You do, said the knight. He slowly took the armor off his head and revealed nothing, no one. The suit of armor was empty. No, oh no, said Despero. There is no knight in shining armor. It's all just make-believe, like happily ever after. And in his sleep, reader, the small mouse began to cry. That was a bad dream. Let's read another chapter because that one was really short. This one is called Chapter 36, What Mig Carried. And while the mouse slept, Roscuro the rat put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how it all unfolded? The story is not a pretty one. There is violence to it and cruelty. But stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough to have figured it out for yourself, cannot always be sweetness and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, the rat finished once and for all the job he had started long ago. He chewed through Gregory's rope, all the way through it, so that the jailer became lost in the maze. Remember, the jailer Gregory had a rope so he wouldn't get lost in the maze? Well, now the rope is chewed through and he's going to get lost in the dungeon. Late at night, when the castle was dark, the serving girl, Miggery Sow, climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand, she carried a candle, and in the pockets of her apron were two very ominous things. Ominous means it looks like something bad's gonna happen. In the right pocket, hidden in case they should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. And in the left pocket was a kitchen knife. The same knife that Miggery Sow had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. These were the things, a rat and a knife and a candle, that Mig carried with her as she climbed up, up, up the stairs. "Gor," she said to the rat, "it's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, yes," whispered Rescuro from her pocket. "It is quite dark, my dear." "When I'm a princess," began Mig. "Shh," said Rescuro. "May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself? And may I suggest further that you keep your voice down to a whisper? We are, after all, on a covert mission. That means secret mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "I do," shouted Mig. "Then please," said Rescuro, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gor," whispered Mig. "All right." "Thank you," said Rescuro. "Do I need to review with you again our plan of action?" "I got it all straight right here up in my head," whispered Mig, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Rescuro. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it again one more time, just to be sure." "Well," said Mig, "we go to the princess's room, and we'll—" "Woody!" "Shh, that's Woody, my dog. I think he's scared of the plan. "We go to the princess's room, and we will be seeing that she is sleeping and snoozing and snoring. And then I will wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Rescuro. "No, I won't, because I want her to live so that she can be my lady-in-waiting when I become a princess." "Exactly," said Rescuro. "That will be her divine comeuppance." "Gor," whispered Mig. "Yes, her divine comeuppance." Mig had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she very much liked the sound of it, and she repeated it over and over to herself until Rescuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Mig, "I tells her to get out her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." "Ha!" said Rescuro, "a little journey. That is right. Ha! I love the understatement of that phrase. A little journey. Oh, it will be quite a little journey indeed." "And then," said Mig, who was now coming to her favorite part of the plan, "we take her to the deep downs, and we gives her some long lessons in how to be a serving girl, and we gives me some short lessons in how to be a princess. And when we is all done studying up, we switch places. I gets to be the princess, and she gets to be the maid. Gor!" Reader, this is the very plan that was presented to Mig when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not for one blind minute, mistake Mig for the princess or the princess for Mig. But Miggery Sow, as I have pointed out, is not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, too, she wanted so desperately to become a princess. She wanted, oh, how she wanted. And it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe in Rescuro's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was more simple and more terrible. He intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Mig put chains on the princess's hands and her feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess in the dark forever. Oscuro, he's a bad guy. We'll come back next time and see if it happens. Bye.